Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin is back around 115K, and it might be because Washington's $37 trillion debt crisis now comes with a conspiracy theory. Pay it off with stablecoins and we'll call it even. Robinhood launched its own social network where you can YOLO trades and doubles as public humiliation. Think Reddit, but every post comes with a receipt. And El Salvador is celebrating 4 years of Bitcoin adoption while quietly repealing the law that made it legal tender, because nothing says happy birthday like an IMF babysitter. All that and more right now. Let's go. Good morning, my disciples of digital scarcity, and welcome back to another episode of the Blockchain Report. I'm Hank Hudson, coming to you live from San Francisco. It's Friday, the day your boss preaches work-life balance while you're just refreshing Bitcoin charts between Zoom calls. Now, before we cannonball into today's stew of ETF inflows, dying meme coins, and billionaires subtweeting like middle schoolers, do your part. Tap that like button and follow RoxomTV and yours truly at Hank at RoxomTV, because if you're still taking cues from Instagram gurus, you deserve every rug pull headed your way. Sorry, guys. Now, let's hit the morning's market rundown and see who's mooning, who's melting, and who's praying Jerome Powell stays quiet today. Let's check it out. All right, this morning is bringing some good tidings in the world of Bitcoin. We are back above that $115,000 mark. We're up about 0.5% in the last 24 hours. And we're going to be joined in just a second by our resident crypto wunderkind and chart shark, Luca Pagano, to break it all down as we head into the weekend. In the rest of the cryptoverse, let's see how things are shaping up this morning. Right now, again, we got Bitcoin at 115.2 now. We're moving in the right direction. Ethereum joining in on the fun, up over 2.5 percentage points in the last 24 hours, currently sitting above 4,500. All-time highs are around that high $4,800 mark, so we might be seeing some new ATHs there soon. And Solana having a bit of a ball this week. It was as low as, I think, 200 around Monday. Currently, we're at around almost 250, so Solana's doing okay. In the world of TradFi right now, we got the Dow Jones down about 0.5% this morning. We have the S&P 5 at around 6,600. The Nasdaq currently sitting above that $22,000 mark. And MicroStrategy, big surprise there. It's having a nice day, up over 2.5%. But so is Bitcoin, so not too surprising. All right, now it's time to check the charts with our main man, Luca Pagano. So hit the stinger and let's roll.
Oh, it's beautiful, Hank. This is not financial advice.
All right, welcome back. It's time to read the tea leaves with our resident chart shark, Luca. Luca, how are you this Friday? It's great to see you.
Hey, Hank, how's it going? It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it is going great, Luca. We got a lot to talk about this morning. When we spoke earlier this week, you said that Bitcoin needed to finish the week, I think you said above 114K. We're at 115 right now. What are the charts telling you? Are we in store for a nice, happy weekend? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the charts have been very good to us, Hank, because what we were eyeing last week, or better said, at the beginning of the week on Monday, it was, remember, we were fighting this whole structure, So for the folks that missed it, just as a quick recap here with you, Hank, we have this very important level, which was like mid $111,000, which was basically May's all-time high. Then we pulled back and tested this again. Then we tested this again. So this is a very important level for us, and we have all this bidding that we saw on the order books right below it. So for me, this was looking as a beautiful deviation. This we talked on Monday, but the real confirmation was closing above that level, like $112,000 more or less. So honestly, it's beautiful what happened since Monday, right? Because we have this deviation on the high range, and now we're trying to push up. our target was mid 115, $116,000. We almost got there, and now we're pulling a little bit back, which is pretty normal for the conditions. So I'd say we had an awesome week, Hank. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, things are looking pretty good. Now, based on what you're seeing, hearing, and reading right now, what do you account for this most recent surge as we head into the weekend? Do you think people are starting to think that maybe we might see some bigger Fed rate cuts coming up than expected? 25 basis points seems to be the word on the street, but there have been rumblings that we could even maybe see 50. You think that's starting to get priced into Bitcoin's momentum?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, the rate cuts talk. We talk a little bit on this week also on the state of the Bitcoin markets, and I think like the rate cuts are a very interesting deal right now because we're entering Q4 soon, right? So
Right.
basically, Powell said that he would be looking very close into unemployment, metrics and uh, it's very telling that rate cuts are a high probability right now, and also
Mm-hmm.
if you see the the markets of like the 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 money markets, they are very much stacked in with liquidity. There are about 7.3 trillion dollars. So what that means is there's a lot of liquidity to be entering the market if rates cut happen entering into Q4, right? So I think that's a very interesting point to be held account, and I think that honestly markets are looking great in terms of that assessment. So as I love to say, Hank, here, like unless market proves us otherwise, which we should always be open-minded in the market. We should have strong opinions, loosely held. But I think if the market until market proves us otherwise, we're looking into north prices, right?
It certainly seems that way, and Bitcoin's not the only one having a nice time right now. Ethereum is
Yeah.
up around that $4,500, $4,600 level. We saw new all-time highs just barely. It was like a week or two ago. I think it inched near 4,900. What are you seeing from Ethereum? I mean, we've had some price predictions here on the show from others that said they think Ethereum could reach upwards of 7,100 potentially by the end of this year. What are you seeing from the charts as far as ETH goes?
Yeah, I mean, Ethereum is having a really nice also this hang just like as a comment on in terms of structure. I love to talk about structure. This is a round floor, right? That's what a round floor looks like. Then we have the round tops. These are probably deviations. For me, Ethereum was very clean as well because we marked that bid zone, which was basically the struggle that we had on the end of August in terms of the daily candles, and we're seeing honestly a very nice chart of a round floor heading up to basically all-time highs for Ethereum. Honestly, what we should see as well, Hank, I think that is quite impressive is Solana. Because Solana has been
I was going
behaving
to say,
amazing.
yeah.
Amazing, amazing,
Like
amazing in terms of
25% in the last month.
it's honestly beautiful what Solana has done in terms of structure and in terms of pushing. What I've been eyeing very closely actually is Solana against BTC. Let me show you real quick because so basically Solana has this huge rounded floor. If we mark, let's mark real quick for us live here, the what was basically multi-level important. See if I draw this back. This was the more multi-level of Solana, which we ranged. Remember a lot in 2024. We talked about this. So in Solana, as I see it, very quickly, this is of course, guys, Solana in terms of BTC, right? So basically, it's the question here is whether we should hold BTC or Solana. Of course, guys, this is not financial advice, but we had this huge range, right? And now, as I see it, Hank, honestly, this is a big deviation out here, which is honestly beautiful to watch. And now we're entering into the range again. So I think honestly Solana is gonna be great the following months against BTC. That's at least my view, right? Of course, not financial
Yeah, I mean,
advice. We will be analyzing
right.
this and ongoing, but yeah.
Yeah, between that and between Solana and Ethereum's upswing, I might have to dust off the old NFTs and see how those bad boys are doing, but maybe not. In terms of Bitcoin, you said Bitcoin to Solana. We're seeing Solana kind of emerge right now, some significant gains in just the last couple of weeks. What is the Bitcoin ratio looking like in terms of its dominance over the market right now? I think we fell as low as like 55, 58%. And what are those numbers telling you in terms of what's going on in the market right now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Bitcoin dominance is one of the hottest charts right now, Hank, for me, because since we've seen this big pullback weekly, remember on the midst of July, we said, hey, I think alt season started right there, right here in the mid of July, and then we've got this beautiful low, and now we're basically at the support, one would say, but it doesn't look very strong, to be honest, which is a good news, of course, if you're holding what we were talking about, Ethereum, Solana. I think we might see even into the mid 50s, in terms of Bitcoin dominance. That would be, of course, amazing for some altcoins. Remember that we talked also, Hank, and I think it's a very important subject in this new Bitcoin era, let's say, as of this new cycle, especially in altcoins. Like, it's not that everything's gonna work as it should, as it was before. It's not that when it's alt season, everything is gonna win. Every altcoin is gonna win in terms of Bitcoin. For me, the market is a little bit more mature on that, and you gotta be selective with your altcoins. But nonetheless, I think altcoins have been having a pretty good run since the mid of July, right?
Yeah, and it looks like altcoin summer might be running just a little bit longer if the Bitcoin's dominance chart is indicative of anything. And speaking of Bitcoin, Luca, I'm glad we have you here today because while you've been gone, we've started something the last couple of weeks, okay? Every guest we've had on our show, we've had them make a price prediction, Price is Right style, for Bitcoin by the end of the year. And whoever wins it gets a Roxom Patagonia. And so if you win it, you get another one. So we want to put you on the board. Let's bring up the board here, guys. So these are all the people whom we've got our predictions for yet. So you got Joe Burnett. He's at the lower end at around 150. Then we have his high, as I think Newt Svanholm had it at 443. So I love his optimism. Based on what you've been seeing in the market this year, going up now, Q4 is coming up. We're expecting things to take off as that often happens in Q4. What is your price prediction for the end of this year so that I can give you another Roxom Patagonia? What do you think?
Amazing, amazing. I'd love to have one because they are honestly great for the folks out there that are trying to win their own. So yeah, I mean, honestly, what I expect on the price, Hank, on the dates, it's a bit more challenging. So I will try.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
would
it's just for
expect
fun.
for us to, I would expect for us to hit the $145,000 mark by the end of the year.
145. All right, we'll put you on the board. Beautiful. So now we got our
Put me,
resident
put me on
expert
the board, please.
put him on the board.
Wait,
All right,
I'm
Lucas,
gonna be
before we let
sorry.
you
I'm
go
gonna
here,
be
go ahead.
I'm gonna be a little bit more specific. 145,
Yes.
502. That's my mark.
There we go. That's a Price is Right bet if I've ever seen one. I like it. Now, before we let you go today, Luca, we're heading into the weekend. What do you feel like we need to close at today to feel a confirmation that this bullish momentum for Bitcoin will be continuing through the weekend? Do we need to stay above that 114, 115 mark? Do we need to hit a little higher? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Hank, I think we're at a very sweet spot right now. I'll tell you first what we don't need to do, and then what we'd love to do, right? Because I think it's as important, right? What we don't need to do, honestly, I don't think we should close any day right now with this deviation in mind. We shouldn't close any day below $112,000. That's the first thing and the most important one for me.
Okay.
For us to sleep 8 hours as we'd love to, right? That's the first one. Then heading into the weekend, for me the most bullish of all would be to close above $117,000. That's for me a clear heading into new all-time highs structure. Of course, as you always know, not financial advice, but that's my view at least for the planning into the weekend.
Love it. Okay, well, you guys heard it here first. And before we go, Luca, the producers have told me I need to give my prediction too so that I can look like a total knucklehead with, I don't know what I'm talking about. My prediction, guys, for the board, give me, I don't think it's going to be as high as everyone thinks. And I don't think that in a bad way. I think we're just going to see a slow and steady march through the end of this year and next year. I think that's where we're actually going to see our next big all-time high. But I'm thinking the end of this year, 142,500. That's what I think we reach this year. But I think things continue to climb higher after the New Year's. I don't think the real big next all-time high is going to be until probably the first half of next year. But what do I know, right? I just report the news. All right, Luca. Now, before we let you go, for all of our audience out there that can't wait till you're on the show next time and wants more of your chart analysis now, where can I send them?
Yeah, I mean, let's hope to analyze things together on look at Roxom.com. Look at Roxom, actually, not .com. Yeah,
Beautiful.
That would be great.
Well, you guys heard it here first. Awesome. Well, Luca, always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll have you back next week. As always, buddy, enjoy your weekend.
Awesome, Hank. Thank you very much, as always, and see you next time.
See you next time, buddy. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, this morning's Bull Run, where we cover the top stories of the day, and make sure you stay tuned because later today, we're going to be joined by our special guest, so make sure you don't miss that. All of it coming up here on the Blockchain Report when we return. All right, welcome back to this morning's Bull Run, where we go over the top stories of the day. Let's get started. First up, August's Consumer Price Index, or CPI, came in line with market expectations. And in Fedland, in line translates to, we now have permission to slash rates like we meant to all along. The headline CPI rose 2.9% year over year, the highest level since January of 2025. And the core CPI, excluding food and energy, hit 3.1%. Monthly, prices were up 0.4%, beating the 0.2% forecast, which means inflation is elevated but not totally out of control. And apparently that's good enough for Jerome Powell to dust off his rate-cutting scissors. Love those scissors. The labor market, meanwhile, looks like it's collapsing under the weight of its own LinkedIn posts. Unemployment is up to 4.3%, the highest since October of 2021. Jobless claims spiked to 263,000 when economists expected 236,000. That's the highest in more than 4 years. Even worse, the government rewrote recent jobs data like a bad screenplay. June payrolls first reported at 144,000. They were later cut to 14,000 and then revised again to an actual loss of 13,000. Oh, and the annual benchmark revision, well, that chopped another 911,000 jobs out of the past year like they never existed. Benjamin Cohen, co-founder of Into the Cryptoverse, says given this disaster reel, a 50 basis point cut would be reasonable. His logic, the 2-year yield is already 100 basis points below the Fed funds rate, so the Fed is still way too restrictive. Or in other words, the Fed fell asleep at the wheel, missed the signs, and now has to slam the brakes with a bigger cut to make up for lost time. And if they do, a 50 bips cut isn't priced in, which means crypto doesn't just rally, it detonates. Bitcoin already jumped to 114,600 on CPI upon the CPI release. That's a nearly 7% on the week. And Rectember fears didn't stop it because apparently September decided to go bullish instead. The math is actually pretty simple. Inflation is cooling, the labor market is collapsing, and the Fed is cornered. A 50-point cut now is Powell's way of saying, oops, my bad, guys. And for Bitcoin, well, that's jet fuel. Love it. And in other news, the U.S. national debt has ballooned to $37 trillion, and with it, the conspiracy theories have ballooned too. Bitcoin ripped past 124K last month, pushing the entire crypto market to $4 trillion in total market cap. Traders are calling for a $2 million Bitcoin like it's a DoorDash order. Meanwhile, the dollar looks wobbly, gold is pumping, and President Donald Trump is still locked in a WWE-style feud with Jerome Powell. That's when Anton Kobakov, a top advisor to Vladimir Putin, grabbed a mic at the Eastern Economic Forum and accused America of trying to rewrite the rules of gold and crypto to erase its debt. His math goes like this, okay? The U.S. takes its $37 trillion in debt, shoves it into stable coins, devalues it, and says, "Congratulations, world, we're totally square now." This is the kind of idea that sounds crazy until you remember that Trump himself floated it last year, joking on Fox Business by saying, maybe we'll pay off our $35 trillion, hand them a little crypto check, right? And now the Trump administration has gone full embrace. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said stablecoins will buttress the dollar's global status, expand access for billions, and surge demand for treasuries. Or in other words, your freedom money is now Treasury bill collateral. At the same time, the Fed is eyeing its dusty gold stash. Officially, the U.S. gold reserves are worth about $750 billion, but they're still marked at $11 billion on the books, which is like claiming your Tesla is worth a bus pass. Conveniently, a Fed paper dropped last month on how they might revalue those gold reserves. Now, Kobakov compared it to the 1930s and the 1970s, when the U.S. solved its money problems at everyone else's expense. Only this time, he says that Washington is pushing the world into the crypto cloud, which sounds less like policy and more like something my uncle screams after 7 beers. I love the crypto cloud. And while Washington toys with Bitcoin as a debt band-aid, Russia, China, and Iran are busy trying to kill the dollar entirely. Russian companies are already using Bitcoin to duck sanctions, proving that even geopolitics runs on pump and dumps now. Bottom line here is that America owes $37 trillion, and it's out of normal options. So the plan might really be as dumb and as brilliant as handing the world a Bitcoin IOU and saying, "Reset button smashed. You're welcome." Ooh, and this is a fun one. Robinhood, you know the app, got popular during COVID, is now tired of being just your trading app. Now it wants to be Reddit, Twitter, and Venmo all at once. What could go wrong? The company unveiled Robinhood Social at its Hood Summit. It's an in-app social feed where users can post trades, commentary, and even follow avatars that mimic the trades of politicians and billionaires. CEO Vlad Tenev pitched it as proof that Robinhood is now a financial super app. But there's a catch. You can't post unless you've made a trade. So no trade, no post. The product team says this is verification, which is a polite way of saying you can't pump a stock unless you actually put your money where your memes are. Each profile also publicly shows your year-to-date return. So if you're down 40%, the whole community knows. Great. So congratulations, your bad trades are now social content for the rest of us. Reporters previewed the platform at Robinhood's Manhattan headquarters and said it looks like X mixed with Venmo, except every post is strapped to a receipt. Other features from the summit, an AI charting tool, short selling, overnight index options, and more than 40 CME futures contracts. Because nothing says financial super app quite like turning your portfolio into a casino with a chat room attached. Robinhood Social could become a megaphone for finfluencers, trading gurus, and newsletter peddlers looking to monetize their hot takes. Executives even hinted future earnings calls could be live streamed directly in the app, and big names like Nvidia might have results broadcasted there too. Avatars already exist to mimic the trades of tech billionaires and politicians, which means you can literally copy your favorite senator's trades without waiting for a disclosure filing. Now, why does this app matter, you ask? Well, because meme stops like GameStop once exploded on Reddit, a platform where nobody had to prove they owned a share. Imagine what happens when that same energy gets strapped to verified trades, AI tools, and a community feed. Robinhood isn't just enabling trades anymore, they're enabling content. Your wins, your losses, your YOLOs, all live, all public, and all monetizable. The Wall Street has Bloomberg terminals, and the retail crowd will soon have a meme terminal. Can't wait, sounds really great. And the Winklevi twins have finally taken Gemini public, pricing their IPO at $28 a share and valuing the exchange at $3.3 billion. You see, earlier this week, the company raised its proposed range from $17 to $19 up to $24 to $26. and demand was strong enough that they priced it even higher, selling 15.2 million shares and capping the raise at $425 million. Gemini stock will trade on the Nasdaq under the ticker GEMI. Up to 30% of shares are being reserved for retail investors through Robinhood, SoFi, Webull, and other apps. So yeah, you can buy Gemini shares from the same app you used to YOLO Dogecoin in 2021. The IPO comes with a 30-day underwriter option for more shares, with Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, and Morgan Stanley leading the charge. Because no crypto IPO is complete without the blessing of Wall Street's most boring bankers. Gemini was founded back in 2014, currently holds $21 billion in assets, and offers side hustles like a crypto-backed credit card. They even rolled out a new card with Ripple last month, signing up over 30,000 customers in August alone, double the prior month's pace. But here's the kicker. Gemini has been bleeding money. It posted a $159 million loss in 2024, and in just the first half of 2025, it lost $283 million. The IPO is basically a please ignore the red ink and look at our shiny Nasdaq ticker. Still, it isn't all bad. Nasdaq itself invested $50 million into Gemini this week, betting on its custodial services and trade management system. That's real institutional confidence, or at least expensive charity, depending on how you want to look at it. Initial trading will test how much appetite is left for crypto IPOs, as Circle and Bullish had strong listings, but with Bitcoin and Ether consolidating. It's unclear how long the IPO party can actually last. So Gemini is now officially public, the Winklevi got their big listing, and the market now gets to decide whether Gemmy is the next Coinbase or the next cautionary tale. And the evil empire, BlackRock, has already made it rain with their spot Bitcoin ETF, and now they want to tokenize everything. Yeah, the world's largest asset manager, the same crew that turned boring index funds into trillion-dollar monsters, is now working on how to slap ETFs onto the blockchain. Stocks? Tokenized. Bonds? Tokenized. Your sanity after hearing Larry Fink say every asset will be tokenized? Also tokenized. Here's the pitch. ETFs on-chain could trade 24/7, which means no more waiting for Wall Street to wake up at 9:30 like it's your hungover roommate. Americans could trade abroad more easily, and those ETFs could even be used as collateral in crypto networks, because nothing says financial innovation quite like pledging your S&P 500 shares to ape into dog coins. This isn't out of just nowhere either. Last year, BlackRock launched Butyl, a tokenized money market fund that ballooned past $2 billion. It's now the belle of the ball on crypto platforms. And you pair that with the historic launch of their spot Bitcoin ETF, one of the most popular funds in ETF history, and you can see why they're feeling a little bold right now. Larry Fink, meanwhile, is out here preaching the gospel of tokenization like it's his TED Talk opener. He said every financial asset can and will be tokenized. He even reminded investors again in his 2025 annual letter, because Larry never misses a chance to tell you the future looks like an Excel sheet glued to Ethereum. And they're not alone. Franklin Templeton is dabbling. Kraken and Robinhood are already selling tokenized stocks overseas. Nasdaq even asked regulators if it can list tokenized shares directly, which feels like Grandpa trying to join TikTok. I don't love it. But let's pump the brakes here for a second. ETFs today settle through Wall Street's clunky clearinghouses. Tokens settle instantly. Reconciling those two systems is like trying to sync your iPhone with a fax machine. Still, the climate is shifting. Under Trump, regulators are basically saying, go ahead, play with your blockchain Legos, just please don't blow up the sandbox. Right now, the tokenized asset market is only about $28 billion, which is pocket change compared to the multi-trillion-dollar ETF industry. But BlackRock is sticking its flag here signals where this is all actually going. So what's the bottom line, right? Well, BlackRock's not just dabbling anymore. They're betting the whole future of ETFs on-chain. And if Larry Fink gets his way, the next time you buy into the S&P 500, it'll settle faster than your Starbucks app. Can't wait. And Vivek Ramaswamy, he's back in the news, and he didn't make it to the White House last time, but he's still trying to run the Treasury, literally. Shareholders of asset entities just approved a reverse merger with his firm Strive Enterprises, creating what they call a leading public Bitcoin treasury company. Translation, a company whose whole point is to hoard Bitcoin and hopefully outperform Bitcoin by being even more Bitcoin. Now, the combined entity keeps the Nasdaq ticker ASST. Yes, the ticker is AST, which might be the most honest branding Wall Street has ever produced. Matt Cole takes the CEO spot and chairman seat, while asset entities Arshia Sarkani becomes chief marketing officer and board member. Because when you're building a Bitcoin treasury strategy, you definitely need a TikTok guy in the room. The financial firepower here? A $750 million private placement with warrants that could unlock another $750 million. That's $1.5 billion locked and loaded, ready to be pointed at the Bitcoin market like a bazooka. Cole bragged about the deal structure. Reverse merger, zero debt profile, and a $750 million pipe, which he says makes them uniquely positioned, which is corporate speak for please buy our stock. We pinky promise that we're different. The strategy is actually pretty clear. Strive wants to outperform Bitcoin through leveraged beta and alpha generating approaches, which basically means take Bitcoin, put it on leverage, and pray it doesn't collapse. Strive itself was co-founded by Ramaswamy in 2022 as a financial services firm. He now reportedly is gearing up to run for Ohio governor in 2026 because if you can't run the country, you might as well run Ohio, I guess. The merger put Strive into the ring with other corporate Bitcoin treasuries that have been hogging the spotlight like MicroStrategy. Hey, buddy. Asset entities previously made its money from social media marketing across Discord, TikTok, and other platforms. Strive Asset Management has managed more than $2 billion in assets since launching its first ETF in August of 2022. Once the Nasdaq clears the listing application, the new company plans to step onto the stage as a billion-dollar Bitcoin whale in training. For Bitcoin, this is pretty simple. Another corporate sponge is ready to soak up supply, and every billion that gets locked away in treasuries is one more reason why Bitcoin keeps marching higher. All right, we're taking a break. When we're back, we got more news coming at you, and our special guest, Avi Mash, will be coming up to join us in just a bit, so stay tuned. All that coming up on the Blockchain Report when we return.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
All right, welcome back. It's time for a little Blockchain Without Borders. And today, our first visit, we're going to El Salvador and seeing what they're up to, because right now, their Bitcoin office just threw itself a birthday party. Aww. Marking the 4th anniversary of Bitcoin Day, that magical day in September back in 2021 when the country shocked the world by making Bitcoin legal tender. Naturally, the press release came with plenty of bragging rights. They flexed nearly 6,300 Bitcoin in the strategic reserves, currently valued at a tidy $702 million. They pointed to a brand new banking law that now allows Bitcoin investment banks to operate for so-called sophisticated investors. They bragged that the 80,000 public servants are now certified in Bitcoin, which means half the bureaucracy can explain sats to you while the other half just still continues to ignore your paperwork. And of course, they highlighted shiny new public education programs in both Bitcoin and artificial intelligence, because nothing says national development quite like mixing blockchains with robots. But beneath all the balloons and hashtags is a slightly messier reality here. You see, back in January of this year, El Salvador's legislature quietly repealed the very Bitcoin legal tender law it had built its reputation on. Why? Well, a $1.4 billion loan deal with the IMF. Or in other words, if you want a bailout, you trade in your laser eyes for a pair of corrective lenses. As part of that deal, the government agreed to stop buying Bitcoin with public funds. Support for the Chivo wallet, once the flagship tool of the Bitcoin rollout, was scaled back after the people of El Salvador collectively shrugged and went back to using dollars. And in July of this year, the IMF published a report confirming that the government hasn't bought a single new coin since signing the loan deal in December of 2024. The receipts were clear. The report even included a letter of intent signed by Central Bank President Douglas Pablo Rodriguez Fuentes and Finance Minister Gerson Rogelio Posada Molina, explicitly stating that El Salvador's Bitcoin balance hasn't changed. The IMF basically put in writing, the experiment is on a leash. The result is a weird split screen. On one hand, El Salvador will always be the first country to make Bitcoin legal tender. They still hold a national reserve worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They have laws on the books supporting Bitcoin investment banks. They have 80,000 public servants who can now casually name drop Lightning in break rooms. But on the other hand, they scaled back adoption under the IMF's pressure. They haven't bought new Bitcoin in nearly a year, and their flagship wallet flopped like a bad meme coin launch. And their policy ambitions were clipped before the confetti even settled. So here we are, 4 years in, El Salvador proved a nation state can adopt Bitcoin, but thanks to the IMF, they also proved a nation state can be forced to dial it back. A bold precedent tempered by global financial politics. For Bitcoin, the symbolism is still enormous though, but for El Salvador, the revolution is looking less like hyper-Bitcoinization and more like happy anniversary. Please enjoy this IMF babysitting package. So there you go. Let's see what's going on in China. Let's bring their flag up there. Kind of scares me, a lot of red going on. Made me think we were getting taken over by some hacker group or something. But back in China, 2 technicians in Hong Kong thought they'd crack the code to free Bitcoin mining. Forget cheap hydro, forget subsidized power in Kazakhstan. These guys went with stealing electricity from care homes for the disabled. Great. Yeah, care homes for the disabled. Because nothing says Satoshi's vision quite like jacking kilowatts from the most vulnerable people on the planet. Here's how it all unraveled. Staff at the Shamshui Po facility noticed that the internet was slowing down harder than a Solana outage. They also spotted utility bills suddenly spiking up by up to $1,153 US. That's when the IT unit found unauthorized equipment stashed in the office ceiling. Turns out our crypto masterminds had installed 8 total rigs, 5 humming away in Shamshui Po, 3 more buzzing above a care home in Kwun Tong, all neatly tucked into suspended ceilings like some kind of ASIC Easter egg hunt. And the best part of this, they exploited a facility's upgrade in August to wire the machines straight into the home's power and internet, which means while workers were improving care, these guys were improving their hash rate. Inspector Ning Xixwing from the Technology and Financial Crime Squad explained the whole mess, saying, the first report came back on September 4th, and by September 5th, the police arrested the suspects, aged 32 and 33, in Mong Kok and Shamshui Po. The charge to these guys is, well, abstracting electricity. That's the official name under Hong Kong's theft ordinance. The maximum penalty? 5 years in prison. Minimum penalty, a lifetime of being clowned in crypto headlines. Authorities stressed that this wasn't a big syndicate, just 2 rogue techs with a very flawed business plan. And Inspector Ning had some advice to them. During the renovations, keep an eye out for unauthorized gear and check your utility bills. Monitor your network because apparently your ceiling could be moonlighting as a Bitcoin mine. So let's recap here, shall we? 2 guys, 8 rigs, bills over $1,000, and a mining operation so shady it literally lived in the dark above care homes. Bitcoin's digital gold, but these clowns treated it like stolen copper wiring. Don't like it. All right, we're taking a break. When we're back, more blockchain report, including our big special guest coming up here in the next few minutes, so stay tuned. We'll be back after this. All right, gang. Well, New Yorkers were stopped. There we go.
Hey, do a kickflip. Look at your dunks, bro.
Shut your bitch ass!
Daddy, that's fucking crazy.
Well, this next story might be my new favorite thing, maybe ever, as New Yorkers were stopped in their tracks when a humanoid robot called Rizbot strolled down the street in a cowboy hat. The robot's name was literally printed across its chest, as if the hat wasn't enough of a giveaway, and Rizbot was flanked by a human security guard because apparently even robots need celebrity protection now. The whole spectacle was caught on TikTok and immediately went viral. Rizbot walked, stared directly at pedestrians, gave them middle fingers, and blasted sound bites ripped straight from TikTok edits, meme laughs, one-liners, and audio clips that every chronically online person instantly recognized. Commentators were losing it. One wrote, "This would send me straight into psychosis." Another said the weirdest part wasn't the cowboy hat or the meme voice, it was the fact that the robot had its own bodyguard shadowing it like a press tour celeb. And this isn't the robot's first rodeo either. You see, earlier this year in Austin, Texas, the same Unitree G1 humanoid was spotted wandering downtown under the alias Jake the Cowboy Robot. Back then, it was shaking hands with strangers and generally creeping people out. The Unitree G1 itself, it isn't exactly cheap. Depending on upgrades, it can cost anywhere from $15 to $50K. The model was trained at the University of Texas, Austin, where researchers literally taught it how to dance. So whether it's called Jake in Austin or Rizbot in New York, the shtick is the same. Walk around in cowboy cosplay, pump out memes, and soak up attention. And attention it got. Phones were everywhere. TikTok was flooded. People were hysterical, confused, and very much filming. The takeaway is that robots are going viral in public spaces, not in labs. They're becoming meme machines with legs, and Rizbot has mastered the formula. Cowboy hat, meme voice, bodyguard, instant virality. Victor, I want to bring you in for this one.
Oh.
What are your thoughts on Rizbot? He might be my favorite thing of 2025 personally. If you haven't, people in our audience haven't checked him out yet, go search Rizbot. He's all over the TikToks and the Instagrams. He's just running around talking to people. If Rizbot came up and started chatting with you, Victor, are you here for that, or do you just find him a AI annoyance?
I'm here for it. I think it'd be fun.
Me too.
I mean, having a little conversation with this AI robot. I already do, right, with ChatGPT and Grok and whatnot. But this will give it a face.
Right. It does. I was a little disappointed to learn, though, yesterday. So I initially thought Rizbot was completely autonomous. I thought he was just, we had gotten this far where he was going out and making these like insults and whatever thing by himself. I saw him actually call one guy a poor man's Pete Davidson. That was pretty great. But apparently there's the creator of this is behind the scenes nearby with like a remote control and buttons, and he's actually the one instituting all of these reactions and movements that you're seeing with people. And if you haven't seen them, they are pretty wild. Does that give you comfort that we're not at that place with the robots yet, Victor? Or are you a little disappointed like me that this guy isn't just doing this on his own?
I'm a little disappointed, but you know what this reminds me of? Like Disneyland. I feel like they've been doing this for years when they bring out like certain animatronics. Yeah. And they just have a voiceover. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
now that you say it like that, it's not really like, I don't know, new.
Right, I guess not. But it's in public spaces. I don't have to pay
Right.
$200 for a day pass at Disneyland. at
Right,
least, or
right.
whatever it is,
But you don't think that no one's like after him? It's just like out by itself, like someone behind the
well,
scenes.
Well, yeah. Well, there's like a guy I think like in a van nearby who's
Okay.
doing all because some of his like commentary is a little too on point,
On
and
the
like you
nose,
can
yeah.
see him switch dialects depending on who he's talking to, like of different cultures and whatnot too. He'll kind of mesh with it's pretty wild. And actually the very fact that it is a human almost makes me think that like I'm surprised people haven't been like he's racist, he's a racist robot or something, because he'll definitely do some things that are very much correlated with certain cultures specifically. But I mean, it's all in good fun. I'm all for it, and he ties in memes and stuff too. So I'm hoping we get one in San Francisco. I'm bummed we haven't seen one yet.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's any here. But have you seen the one where like they almost run him over? Or if they actually hit him? I forget there's a video where I forget if the car actually hit him or it's like near hitting him.
Oh,
So I'm thinking about that. That's where my mind goes. I'm just like, oh, I mean, people get run over all the time. So what happens when you run over a robot?
yeah. If anything, I think this kind of warms us up to the idea a little bit of like robots wandering around amongst us. And everybody I've seen seems to love this guy. So maybe he's what the world needs right now in this time of very uncertain, politically charged times. I think Rizbot's
robot.
going to
Just
be the
don't
one
give-
that brings us all together.
Don't give him any weapons.
Yeah, no weapons. Rizbot for president, 2028. He's got I'm writing him in on the ballot. He's what the world needs right now. He's bringing us all together. So,
Right.
you know, AI doing some good in the world.
Okay.
All right, we should probably take a break.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. But when we come back, we got our special guest of the day who's going to talk shop. So stay tuned. Coming right back on the Blockchain Report with more after this break.
efforts runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen. This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
All right, and we're back. It's time for today's deep dive. Now, from SaaS sales powerhouse to Bitcoin builder, today's guest has closed Fortune 500 deals, launched startups, and helped bridge the gap between TradFi and the Bitcoin future. He's the co-founder of a platform bringing transparency to Bitcoin finance and the voice behind one of the sharpest news shows in the space. Let's give a big blockchain report welcome to Avi Mash, everybody. Welcome to the show. We are super pumped to have you, and so is our studio audience. How are you this morning?
That is good. Good way to kick off Friday here with you in this afternoon. So I don't know if I'm super delayed here. It looks like my video's a little funky here.
That's okay. We can hear you just fine, and that's what matters, especially as we jump into things this morning, Avi. Could you really quick just give us and your audience a quick snapshot? Who are you? What are you building with 21 Rates and the Bitcoin Economy podcast? And how did you find your way into the Bitcoin space in the first place?
Yeah, great question. And I think it's interesting. You mentioned software sales. That was kind of my career for about 14 years, dealing with a lot of Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, dealing with lots of different, marketing managers, CMO, dealing with a lot of different departments. And I kind of just got to a point where I was like, I'm burnt out. I fell in love with Bitcoin in 2017, was in Lisbon. I was trying to remember exactly where I bought first, but Lisbon, had a bunch of friends. They were selling a ton of things on Amazon, trinkets and whatnot, but making millions of dollars, some of my smartest friends. And they introduced me to Bitcoin. As with everyone, I thought it was Pokemon cards. Or I didn't really fully understand it, and candidly didn't take the time to for a few months. And then it started going up, and I was like, this is one of those things you have to pay attention to. Had the opportunity to go work at a custodian, so professionally. Basically, if you're not familiar with custodians, they're more or less like a bank. Obviously, legally, they're different, but in terms of, for folks, if you have outside listeners outside of the space, that might be helpful. But so we did that professionally. It was Prime Trust. Feel free to look up what happened there. They no longer exist, and got to this point where we were doing some consulting. We started with Block Fuel, so we pivoted actually now a few times from Block Fuel, which was our consulting brand. Recently, we launched the Bitcoin Economy, so we've gone 100% focused in on Bitcoin. What we saw happening, and this was after we went to a Michael Saylor conference, was just seeing treasury companies, which I know we're going to get into in just a second here, but as well as lending. There's different credit cards, right? There's debit cards. There's all of these different pieces that we see in TradFi today now coming over to the Bitcoin economy. And so what we've done now is make a podcast around that. And then we have 21 Rates. I know you had Jody, who is my co-host and co-founder for 21 Rates. But that is an introduction. If you're, Bitcoin maxi, you've been in the space forever, great place for you to go and check the different rates out. And then if you're new to Bitcoin, we also have, things like what is Bitcoin 101, right? And so almost like the nerd wallet, I'd say, for Bitcoin products.
Amazing. Well, education in this space is always needed as this adoption continues to thrive. So we're super pumped, and we're going to talk more about that in just a bit. But right now, I want to go over this story, and then you and I are going to chat about it in regards to corporate treasuries. So hang 10, and we'll be back with you in just a sec. Sound good?
Let's do it.
All right. So here comes the corporate gold rush, only instead of pickaxes, it's MBAs with Bloomberg terminals. At today's current pace, more than 10,000 public companies could hoard over 8 million Bitcoin by 2030, which, when you do the finger maths, tells you that nearly 40% of the supply will be held by corporate holders. Today, less than 1% of companies are in on Bitcoin, but if adoption keeps accelerating, corporate America will be halfway through the cake before retail even lights the candles. Analyst Crypto King says this could trigger a supply shock. Picture Black Friday at Walmart, but instead of flat screens, everyone's trampling each other for Satoshis. And the timing, perfectly chaotic. India, yes, the same country that once tried banning Bitcoin like it was a shady DVD bootleg, is now weighing a state-backed Bitcoin reserve. Meanwhile, Glassnode data shows illiquid supply is at record highs, or in other words, coins are disappearing into cold storage, institutional vaults, and hardware wallets that haven't been touched since Obama was in office. Now, unlike exchange balances, those coins aren't coming back, which means every new buyer has to fight over what's left. Bitcoin is sitting around 115K currently, with supply vanishing and corporations gobbling up millions of coins. We're staring at a squeeze. Too many buyers and not enough Bitcoin to go around. That's how melt-ups happen. That's how six-figure Bitcoin happens. And that's how your kids one day ask why you didn't refinance the house in 2025. We're bringing Avi back. Avi, analysts say over 10,000 companies could end up holding million Bitcoin by 2030. That would be nearly 40% of the supply. Is that bullish for adoption, or is that dangerous centralization? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is a good question. I think it's something that people will answer quickly and say it's very bullish for the space. It does go back to, who you are as a Bitcoiner, in terms of having everything decentralized. Strategy now owns 630,000, I believe, plus Bitcoin. They're buying rapidly, as you mentioned. Metaplanet, 21. There's over, I think, 117 different companies today. And as you mentioned, it's just going to be coming more and more. And so my question, I think, to pose to your audience is, as an investor, right, maybe this is the top 5 to 10 end up winning and coming away with it. But every company now, it's very interesting. I always say now Bitcoin is your new employee, right? They're the ones that are producing the income year on year. And so it is fascinating when you hear Saylor. I'm excited actually to go to Tim Kotzman's conference here in New York. They're going to be putting that one on with a lot of treasury companies. So hope to hear from a lot of these guys. And we've had the opportunity to speak with a lot of them too on the Bitcoin Economy podcast. But yeah, going back to your question, I think it's got to be bullish, right? As you mentioned, they're holding. They're not coming in to buy. The second they sell and show weakness, investors aren't going to like that either, right? And so they're incentivized to hold. It's more of a capital play at this point, I think. And Saylor seems to be very good at raising money.
Yeah, he's the best at it, that's for sure. And yeah, it's definitely bullish if you already own Bitcoin, but then it does beg the question, right? If corporate treasuries become the dominant buyers, do you think retail investors who aren't already in the game risk being completely priced out? Or will there be like new tools that are leveling the playing field as we move forward? What do you think?
Yeah, I actually spoke with I think it was the CEO of Hive that I was speaking with, who mentioned they kind of switched this narrative to Satoshis, right? Because I agree. If you go and tell your friend to go buy something $120,000 that they don't really know much about, that's a little uninviting to a lot of the newcomers, right? And so speaking in Satoshis, I don't know if that's even the right format. That's 100,000 basically, equates to close to $100, right? And so that feels like crazy inflation. So I don't know if I have the right answer, but it feels like there should be something slightly in between. And the beauty of Bitcoin is you don't need to necessarily own a whole Bitcoin, right? When Bitcoin's $13 million, like Saylor predicts, you're doing fine if you have 0.1%, or 0.1 Satoshis there. So.
Yeah, and as somebody who also is on the education side of things, like, what do you think we need to do to show people that aren't already having skin in the game? Like, listen, you don't need to own a whole Bitcoin, because people hear, oh, Bitcoin's at nearly 120, I can't afford it now. What can we be doing differently to show people that you don't need a whole one, you just need some?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't afford not to, at this point. If you look around and see the inflation, the past few years, it's absolutely crazy to think. And one thing Saylor mentioned when he went to the Microsoft meeting, had 3 minutes he was given, right? But he said, look around, like every year you're basically losing 7% of this cash, right? And as companies start to realize that, and it's 21 against infinity, right? So a lot of people say that or see this meme on Twitter, but it's true, right? There's only 21 million. If you factor, Satoshi's million, there's 20 million, right? And so you're fighting over a finite, amount of Bitcoin ultimately. And so to your point, I think that it is something that you just got to get in, start stacking. Even if it's $50 for my daughter, I put $50 a weekend, right? And over time, it's continuing to add up. So I just dollar cost average. That's what I tell my friends to do. It's an easy way to get involved, and don't think you need to get the full Bitcoin right out the gates. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think DCAing, it's always a good play. It does kind of feel like right now we're at like the Hunger Games Bitcoin. There's a bunch of Bitcoin in the middle, only 21 million. I mean, everybody who's in the know is fighting to get their piece of it. And for you, as someone who's worked closely with startups and institutions, have you noticed that CFOs generally are starting to warm up to the idea of Bitcoin treasuries, or is it still kind of a tiny niche right now here in 2025?
Yeah, I think it depends where you are at as a company. Like, I hate to keep quoting Saylor, but he goes, Microsoft doesn't need Bitcoin necessarily. They're a booming company. They're doing very well. Yes, they are losing 7%, but they'll be fine, without that. And so I think it's these companies that are what Eric Semler called like zombie companies. That was a really great speech by him, but it was talking about these companies that are they're not exciting, right? They're not in the Magnificent Seven. They're kind of just sitting there, and it's not very sexy, especially with this huge transfer of wealth. We're about to see, I think it's like 30 to $60 trillion is going to be coming by 2045. I was looking up, so that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Our generation is more crypto curious, right? They're going to be buying Bitcoin with that, and the beauty in what we've seen now with ETFs, I'd say, as well as now these treasury companies, as you're talking about, it allows me to now go in my 401k or IRA, and if it's self-directed, I can then now participate with money that I didn't think I had in cash wise, right? So it doesn't necessarily need to just be directly through Bitcoin. There's other proxies now in which people can get involved with the click of a button, through their brokerage. So it's super exciting. I think it's never been easier to buy Bitcoin. And if, I had a tweet, I think a couple of weeks ago, but I bought a Bitcoin at 120, right? And I was telling my wife, I felt more comfortable buying at 120 than I did at 2,400 when I first bought, right? And that's because at 2,400, it could have gone to zero. Now, not financial advice, but it feels with the president, this administration, the amount of institutions that are getting involved, it's a different playing field now, and it's here. So.
Yeah, between the regulatory and institutional tailwinds we've been seeing, it's easier than ever to have a lot more conviction in terms of where Bitcoin is headed, even though it's at a price that's higher than ever. So yeah, I'm totally on board with you on that one. And I think it's time we jump into your deep dive, Avi. So let's run the stinger, guys. Today, running this.
Not waiting for a video here?
Deep dive. They're getting to it. Yeah, they're gonna play. There it is. Okay, it's Friday. Haven't had much sleep this week myself. No. All right. So, Avi, I want to talk a little bit more about your background. You briefly went into it earlier, and the first thing I want to start with is you mentioned that your friends, when you were in Lisbon, I believe you said, right? You were in Lisbon.
Yeah, Portugal.
Best city. Love it. Yeah, I love Lisbon. It's like it's San Francisco, but like even more beautiful. You said your friends initially tried to get you into Bitcoin. And you always talk about people's orange pill moments. Like, what were they telling you about it? And then you said you were ignoring it for a few weeks or months until you finally kind of did the research and got in. What was it like eventually that convinced you that Bitcoin is the way, the truth, and the light going forward into the future?
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to hear people's orange pill stories. Again, I had some friends that were very entrepreneurial, started trading Amazon, going to China, buying wine decanters, selling those on Amazon, and making millions of dollars at it. And so I had some very, very early friends and everything, right? And they were kind of folks that I wanted to pay attention to. Then they started talking about Bitcoin, and I was like, what the F is this? This made no sense to me. And it's funny looking back. It sounds like hocus pocus. It sounds like it's some like made up money, right? But then once you start digging into it, and I was still, I was 22 or 23 at the time, so I was a little young to start figuring this out. But I didn't really understand the full when the Fed prints money just constantly. And I think that it was the breaking point for me when I just realized that every single year they print money, even with gold. It's 2% a year. That if you had 100% of the gold today, 50 years from now, you'd have half, right? And so that was alarming to me. And that moment, I think, of just really realizing that this is finite and it's pristine capital. It is a belief system, right? At the end of the day, I think, but so is money. And once I realized that, it started to click that if enough people believe in something, it's true, at a certain point.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And as someone who, okay, so you eventually, kind of orange pilled yourself. You did the research after having your friends say, hey, this is something you need to be paying attention to. But then you had the pleasure of eventually trying to orange pill other people. So it kind of begs the question for me, as someone who's closed deals with Estee Lauder, Airbnb, GoPro, what's the tougher sell? Makeup execs, travel CEOs, or convincing TradFi that they really should be understanding Bitcoin?
First of all, I mean, good research there. You've done your background. But I would definitely say orange pilling's easier. You don't have to deal with all the micromanagers, the budgets, the timeline. There's so much that goes into like an enterprise sale, dealing with procurement and legal for 6 months a year. So orange pilling, it kind of, you just look around now. I mean, you can point out so many different news articles, and it's one of those things too, people need to find for themselves, and it sounds cliche, but you can only force feed someone, for so long. Eventually you become annoying, and then they want to become, against it, right? And I think it's one of those things where you showcase enough times, and the price going up, the news articles are helping, to validate, seeing all these big banks and institutions. So it's becoming actually easier and easier. And especially as I was talking about with the ETFs and the treasury companies, you can now like start to learn about it, right? If you buy a few shares of one of these treasury companies, that's a bridge to start coming over to, I think that's going to be the next million people that come over are software sales folks, young professionals, TradFi, that's starting to see a better form of instrument,
Yeah, I mean, as we're seeing inflation continue to rise in this country, people are looking for alternative options. And now there's all of these new ways you can get exposure to Bitcoin without actually having to deal with cold storage, with ETFs, the treasury companies. So it's definitely becoming an easier arena, I think, to get people on board, especially when the price is where it is now. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
I mean, you hear some of these stories. Yeah. I mean, we're a long way from meeting someone in a back alley with a bag, with the seed phrase on it, right? And so it's never been easier to get involved with Bitcoin. I think there's a lot of great content creators out there. Definitely check out our podcast. You guys run a great one. I love jumping on others and just kind of getting in front of people's audiences, because you don't know what that moment will be for someone, and it's going to click eventually for everyone. But the biggest thing for me is 21 versus infinity. 21 million.
Right. No, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up 21, because I want to talk a little bit about your endeavor, 21rates.com. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that start? What was the impetus for it? What are you hoping to achieve? And why should people care?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is encapsulated in what we've been talking about. It's this growing Bitcoin economy, right? And it was something that as a Bitcoiner myself, I would go to these lending sites to check them out. And on every single lending site, they'll tell you that they're the best, right? And then you go to different custodians, they'll tell you that they're the best. And in other industries, there are these third-party, aggregator sites that come off, have no affiliation with other companies, right? And so truthfully, being transparent as Bitcoiners, that's one thing we want to always maintain, is you can't pay to put yourself higher on a list necessarily. It's going to be honest and rates and reviews. But it's going to be as there's more and more products, like there's life insurance now with Meanwhile, there's tons of different lending companies, right? There's different credit card companies. Gemini just went public today. They have a great credit card, right? And so there's a lot of different places that each individual is coming from a different place, a different financial background, different risks and things. And so we want to be able to break it down and have one kind of central hub for Bitcoiners to go to if they're looking for financial products, to read about them and review and have an opportunity to make the best decision for them.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, more and more products are getting developed, in the Bitcoin ecosystem every day, and we need a place to go so that we're not just reading "we're the best" at everybody's individual websites, like you said. So that makes a good point. Is it Trust Wallet kind of does that for other products, right? I think online, is that ringing a bell?
There's a few that we've seen pop up. So like one of our peers, is bitcointreasuries.net. They do a phenomenal job for showcasing all the different treasury companies, right? There's another company out there that does just rates, right? We wanted to kind of be, for all financial products, just to have everything. And so
that's awesome.
We're slowly building it out. Bitcoin Treasuries does a great job, better than we do, honestly, for the treasury part of it. But if you're looking for kind of everything in one central hub, I think 21 Rates, the goal there is to bring on the next million, Bitcoiners, the Bitcoiners that are here. How do you put your Bitcoin to work, right? And so I'm excited as a consumer, for it. Obviously I'm one of the co-founders, but it's very fun at this point in my career to do something that I'm passionate about. It makes sense, and it's something that I want as a Bitcoiner. And so I'm building something for myself, and I think other Bitcoiners will hopefully benefit as well.
Yeah, those are always the best products, right? When you solve a problem that you yourself have, and then of course there's probably millions of other people, if not more, that have that same problem. So you guys are really building something that's going to be very needed now and in the future. And like you said, you guys kind of cover everything. I mean, you're tracking Bitcoin lenders, custodians, ETFs. In your time developing 21 rates, what's the wildest thing you've seen while digging into these companies, aside from the fact that everyone claims that they're the best? Is there anything that you've seen that's just kind of giving you pause as you're digging through these people?
It's a lot of homework for us, right? You can't just go to ChatGPT and have them tell you what to write about them. You got to make sure. And so we fortunately have the podcast, and we were able to connect with a lot of CEOs directly. They'll connect us with their product team. So we're able to go through a lot of the actual paperwork. So that is a kind of nice advantage that we had to start. And then just building it out. I think the most interesting thing is, and wasn't the initial intention, but bank rate, it's very similar to bank rate, where their motto is like, when banks compete, the consumer wins. So, I think we're going to find out, sites like 21 Rates are going to help, some of these companies make it easier for the consumer, get you better rates for the consumer. And I think, we don't want everyone to race to the bottom, but when all these lenders compete, or the credit cards compete, and you're able to see the reviews and real consumers, like, these products are going to they're going to be forced to get better. And so that's something I'm really excited about too, is, the trickle down effect from building out 21 Rates is hopefully the whole ecosystem just continues to improve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we got it up here on the show right now, so you guys can take a look at that 21 Rates. So do you just sign up for the website? Do you need to create a profile? Like, how does that process work if I wanted to sign up with your guys' program?
Yeah, no, great question. So we do have a sign up. We're going to be building out a dashboard that's going to just get better and better over time. Right now, you can save your favorite custodians, favorite credit cards, your treasury company. The ideal state here over time will be that you have a dashboard. You don't need to log into Coinbase, to Gemini, to your brokerage account. You'll have kind of one dashboard. So that is not here today, but that is going to be something that over time will be coming. And then, I think the Learning Center is great. We have different podcasts. So we have our connection. We're moving the Bitcoin Economy podcast under the 21 Rates brand, right? So in the top right corner, you can see the podcast and come and we're having some other podcast friends of ours join the party as well. So as you can see, we just interviewed like Jeff Walton, from Strive Asset Management. We brought on, American Bitcoin, HUD 8 CEO as well. So it's really a cool time to be alive. It sometimes feels surreal. I was talking with my friends last night, and it just feels surreal that I'm, talking to these CEOs every day now, and no one knows them maybe today, but in a couple of years from now, I think 25% of the Fortune 500 could easily be Bitcoin treasury companies.
Yeah, definitely some rarefied air you get to be in, and interviewing these CEOs that I think are going to have a really big place in the future of finance. So that's very exciting. And you also brought up your Bitcoin Economy podcast, which I would love to talk about. And for those that might not already be subscribed to it, give me, what's the pitch? Why do we need one more Bitcoin podcast? What makes your guys different? I want to know.
Yeah, and a lot of thought went into that. We were block fuel again, and we kind of were doing DeFi, DePIN, things that like surface level were very interesting to me, but I wasn't invested in it, financially or mentally. And so what I started to realize was, hey, Bitcoin's no longer this price that just goes up or down, right? There, as we've been talking about the whole time here, there's a whole ecosystem being built. And so we want to be able to say, like, hey, what does your company actually do in this space? There was too many times I was talking to companies, kind of internally rolling my eyes at times, where I was just so confused as to who their users actually were, right? Or what the actual brand is. And you see it year on year that Bitcoin, compared to any altcoin or any other companies that are out there, just remains king over year. And so That's what we're talking about. We're talking with companies about like what they're actually building in the space. Different, if they're treasury companies, we're talking about different products that they're going to be releasing. And so it really is, if you're an investor, we're not there to give financial advice, but hearing from the CEOs directly of these companies that you can buy publicly, you're going to gain some alpha. I think you're going to have a fun time. Me and Jody like to joke around. Sean's our third co-host as well that comes on. And so we'll be introducing some guests too coming up that will be kind of friends of the pod that come on. But yeah, if you're looking for just understanding what Bitcoin does in the space beyond just, price going up or down, we'll be talking to companies that are leveraging Bitcoin as that base layer. And so, yeah, we're super excited about it. If you haven't followed us, I will mention we are now at 21 Rates HQ. And I think that's going to be our final. Okay. We've moved from Block Fuel to now at 21 Rates HQ. That will be the home for the podcast and for the website. So on Twitter.
Nice. And who's your guys? On Twitter. Perfect. Thank you.
21 Savage is a great rapper, though.
Yeah, 21 Savage is good, too. Who's your target listener, then? Is it those hardcore plebes that are looking to learn more? Is it Wall Street suits? Is it just kind of curious people trying to figure out if Bitcoin is still magic internet money? Or who are you guys targeting specifically, or is it kind of something for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to just say, cliche. It's for everyone. I think it is, though, for lack of better words, I think it is a place that we've had, hedge funds tell us that their interns listen to our podcast. We certainly talk with a lot of the treasury companies. They'll listen. And a lot of the times it's the guests that we bring on. People are really interested in hearing. So I think overall, though, again, going back to this new wave, I think that's coming back into the place that these are young investors, people that are either inheriting a lot of money, they've been working now, their 20s and 30s, young professionals that are curious now and have been, lost, I guess, through all this inflation, and people just are looking. We're living in this like crazy world. Like we saw what happened, unfortunately with Charlie Kirk this week, and it just feels like this world's in chaos, right? But if you take a step outside, touch grass, as we say, ultimately, I think the people that are listening just want to have a good time, want to learn about the space, and want to get some alpha from a lot of the CEOs that are out there. So.
Yeah, I mean, all good things. There's nothing better than being entertained and educated at the same time. That seems like a win-win to me. And you mentioned you've really appreciated the fact you're getting to kind of talk to all of these amazing CEOs and leaders of tomorrow. Since you've been doing the podcast, has there been one guest or maybe an episode where it kind of made you think, okay, this is becoming much bigger than just a podcast now? Was there a certain guest maybe that made you feel that way?
Now you're going to make me pick favorites here. I think early on.
You love them
honestly,
all, I'm sure.
That's a great question. Yeah, no, it is a great question. I think the one that still blows me away was the second one we did with Carol House. She used to work for the Biden administration, and this was back when we did touch on everything. So probably not the best promotion for the Bitcoin economy, but this was on Block Fuel with Carol House. She used to work, leading the CBDCs for the Biden administration, and she worked in nuclear energy. It was just fascinating to hear how brilliant this woman was, and how much Americans are not aware of, of what's anyone, of what's going on behind the scenes, and all the thought. But it was really powerful because I think a lot of Bitcoiners and people in the space are very, very against CBDCs, and so I gave her some challenging questions, what people say about them, and she actually gave me very, very thoughtful answers, and I was really encouraging to hear that there are people, in Congress and in the back rooms that do know what they're talking about, and they have a lot of thought that goes behind these processes. So, yeah, but they're all great.
It's always of course, it's always interesting just to kind of hear about from the host perspective of what guests really made a big impact on them. And on the other side of the coin, let's say there's people in our audience right now that are like, hey, this podcast sounds really interesting. Is there a specific episode of the Bitcoin Economy podcast that you think should be the first one they should check out if they're viewing it for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We interviewed John Hoffman from Grayscale. And this alarming number came up in terms of we don't realize how much money is about to be transferred, in the next 20 years. It's an exorbitant amount of money and the biggest, wealth transfer ever. And so, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of that money is going to, and that was just eye opening for me because I didn't realize it's in the trillions with a T, and so a lot of that money is going to go towards things that people are interested in, right? And right now, people are finding value and trust in Bitcoin. There's no CEO, there's no CMO creating campaigns, right? It's the coin of the people, and it's really, really powerful. It does feel a bit religious at times, right? But that's the belief system. It's really cool. So,
yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, people are really underestimating that wealth transfer, to your point, right? Because it's like Bitcoin's in year 15, 16, what have you, and about 20 years from now, whatever it is, right? You now have these 35-year-olds that are inheriting money from their family and have always known Bitcoin as being this thing. And, who only knows what Bitcoin's price will be by then. And, it's just there will be a familiarity with it that our generation and our parents' generation didn't have the same way growing up. It's become a new thing for us, right? And we've had to wrap our head around that. So it's going to be massive. And I think it's a hard thing to undersell. So I think that makes sense. That's an episode people should go check out. So make sure you do that if you haven't already, fam. And you've got that rolled in now to the 21 Rates website, which begs the question for me, what's the plan? What's the long-term vision for 21 Rates? What are you hoping that it will become 5 years from now in an ideal world?
I'd love for it to be the homepage for Bitcoiners, right? A place where it's not necessarily going to be breaking news. I don't know if we'll ever go that route. But we're going to have very thoughtful and intelligent thought leaders that are coming in the space from companies that we ultimately like on the podcast side, right? But I think we're just going to get better data feeds. We're going to have closer connections. We're building new products out. As I mentioned, the dashboard is going to get a lot better where it could be your homepage, just very much like you log into Gmail as your first thing you do every morning. For Bitcoiners, your next tab could be 21 Rates, right? And so being able to get the price of Bitcoin at any time, go through the treasury companies, but being able to have like one centralized dashboard, I think that's the ultimate homepage for Bitcoiners. And we want to hear from feedback. Like right now, I'm seeing the number of Bitcoin. There's a little bug in there that I have to move that dollar sign around, right? So we want to hear from you guys. Honestly, we want this site to be a site of the people, truly. So if you guys have feedback, my email is avi@21rates.com. We want to hear from you. We'll answer everyone, right? And so you guys have suggestions, we'll put it on the roadmap and take a look at it. Honestly, it's an adventure with all of us, included, and we want to build the homepage for Bitcoiners with Bitcoiners in mind. So that's how I'd wrap that up.
I love that. Yeah, it's a site for the people covering the money that was made for the people. Sounds like a match.
Exactly.
If there ever was one. I love that.
Exactly.
Well, we got you. I want to
one
go
last
over
thing,
a
actually.
couple of, yeah, please. Yeah.
I was just going to say one last thing we're taking a look at is this concept of like learning to earn, right? And so we want people as they're learning, it may not be a lot, but we're going to work with sponsors that want to sponsor certain sections of learn to earn, right? So the sponsors will cover the cost, but as you're learning, you'll be able to like acquire Satoshis, right? And so that's not live today,
that's cool.
But that is something that we put on the roadmap that we're super excited about because it's like, there's no better way to orange pill someone than to give them Bitcoin. And now they're like, okay, what do I do with this, right? And so that's where a lot of the journey begins for people. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, you never learn things as well as you do when you're actually in it and having to, transfer between wallets and stuff. And if it's just a small amount, that certainly helps get people started and comfortable with things that can be very intimidating at first glance. I remember my first time with my wallet address and all those characters, feeling very overwhelmed and scared to do pretty much anything. But if you start small, it makes that a lot of a easier, more gradual play for you. So that makes sense, and I love that. It's a great idea. We'll be curious. When do you guys plan for that learn to earn part going live? Do you have a timetable for that yet?
Jody would kill me. He's handling the product, so I won't throw a timeline out there. But I'd say in the next few months, definitely, and we'll be announcing on Twitter. And we have 21 Rates beta right there, so we haven't like officially had our grand opening yet, but the site is live. We definitely want feedback, so good or bad. I always say you win or learn in life, and so I want negative feedback if there's a way to make it better, right? Ultimately, and so we're the pod of the people and the website for the people too.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, nothing better than turning a negative into a positive with some good feedback. So, guys, make sure you give them that if you need to go check out the site. Now, Avi, I want to switch gears a little bit. This has been an interesting Bitcoin cycle. We've got a lot of new narratives going on this year that we haven't had in years past, and I would love to get your 2 cents on a couple of them. To start, Bitcoin ETFs. If we've seen, this is Bitcoin's kind of going mainstream right now. I mean, BlackRock, Fidelity, everyone's doing it. Do you feel like these ETFs are helping Bitcoin adoption, or is it maybe just turning it into another Wall Street product for the fat cats out there? What do you think?
I mean, this is definitely a topic that is debated. I think it's inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there's no rules stopping someone from buying Bitcoin, and so that's just the reality.
Right.
And I do think, as I was talking about before, is that the treasury companies and these ETFs, they allow you a proxy basically to get in front of Bitcoin with a click of a button from your brokerage. So I like it. I think it's ultimately bringing more attention, more interest into the space. It is certainly changing the dynamics, of inflows and outflows, and so it definitely adds an element to that we didn't have before. But I also think it adds a layer of security in terms of I can't envision, and again, not financial advice, but it would be shocking to see another 80% drawdown, at this point. I could see it draw down, of course, maybe 20, 30%, 40% max, but it just feels like with these ETFs, with the amount of, treasury companies specifically that are going to continue to hold, it's just going to be harder and harder to manipulate the market, at least for now. But I know I'll probably kick myself later for saying that. But yeah, so I think I answered your initial question. It's also Friday for me, so my brain's headed towards the weekend. But happy to stick on here.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I would agree with you. I mean, it feels like the support floor for Bitcoin is certainly a lot more solid than it's ever been. And you kind of have to be kidding yourself to think that Bitcoin was ever going to make it to 6 figures and institutions weren't going to come calling for their slice of the pie. That's just a little naive from where I stand. But yeah, I think it was inevitable. And ultimately, I do think it's a good thing if you like number go up, which I do. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And to your point, you talked about,
I think
okay. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
I think we have a gap here. I was saying that, that you want to separate the treasury companies from the ETFs. ETFs make money either direction, right? And so they don't care.
Right.
They'll spin up an ETF for anything if they see a market for it. But the treasury companies are really unique. But definitely do your own due diligence on some of these companies. I've seen like coffee companies buy a quarter of a Bitcoin, call themselves a treasury company. So you got to be careful and make sure what you're buying, but that goes with any investment, equities or Bitcoin products.
Yeah, and with these institutional inflows that we've been seeing, it's been begging this new question that's been on a lot of people's minds, and it's, will these having 4-year cycles be the same as they were in the past, or are we kind of entering a new phase of Bitcoin where maybe it's just kind of slow and steady up and to the right in a way that we haven't seen before? What's your take on that? Are the 4-year cycles still in play, or is history now about to be a little bit different as we move forward to the future?
Yeah, very much an opinion here. And again, I feel like you have to repeat this. We got to get rid of this rule that you have to say non-financial advice every time, because we are here for entertainment, of course. But in my opinion, I think it's just going to continue to tighten, right? So I think the drawdowns are going to be less. I think the upswings eventually will be less too, right? I think we're going to get to a point 10 years out, where it just starts going from like crazy volatility like this to like slowly coming to something that probably resembles gold more so, over time. Where the price is still going up, but it's interesting. I don't think anyone knows the full answer, right? But in my opinion, I think again with the ETFs, with the treasury companies, with nation states starting to buy, right? It's a no-brainer at this point. I mean, you got to pay attention if you're not. Now is the time to wake your friend up and tell them about Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the floor is a lot safer than it used to be. And while we're not going to get so much of the high upside that we've seen, you know, all it takes is a fun catalyst like the United States coming out saying we're going to be actively acquiring Bitcoin, and then the race is on and things are looking really fun for you and me. So I think that might be the way it's going. But again, not financial advice. Now, Avi, we've gotten to a point in the show, we play a fun game with all of our guests here, okay? You're familiar with The Price is Right, right? You've seen The Price is Right.
Love The Price is Right.
Love The Price is Right.
Big
so
fan.
We kind of have our own little version of that. Oh yeah, I was on it once. It was fun. It wasn't during the Bob Barker days though. Yeah, it was a good time. I could tell anyone to get on it. If you want to know how to get on it, I can tell anybody how to get on it. But here's the game. So we asked all of our guests what their Bitcoin price prediction is by the end of 2025. And whoever gets closest, we're sending a Roxom Patagonia to at the end of the year. So guys, if we could bring up our leaderboard right now, and you'll see some of the names that we have up on here, I'm sure you'll recognize. We actually had Tim Kotzman, who I think you said you spoke to earlier this week. We had him on Monday. He gave us his juicy prediction of 327, I think it says. And we've got some ones as high as 443 right now. I think I'm even at 147. I'm a little bit on the lower end. If you had to guess for fun and games, what is your price prediction to the dollar by the end of this year for Bitcoin? I want to put that jacket on you. What do you think?
Got it. Let's go with 184, 237. It seems like the number that popped in my head.
I love that. Oddly
I'm going
specific.
very
We're going to roll with that. Good. I love it. I love it.
I think it's 180s.
180s. What do you think is going to happen then in Q4? Are you expecting some kind of catalyst, or are we just going to kind of see a slow and steady ascent toward the rest of the year? Q4 is usually a good one. So,
I mean, I think everyone's watching the most powerful person in the world, J-Powell, right now, right? So I think the Fed is
right.
If they surprise us, I mean, I just saw, I think right before the show that it was 15 out of 17 are predicting like a 0.25 basis point. So if it gets bigger than that even, right, who knows what could happen. I know these Trump administrations are fun to be in the market for. You never know what could happen with a tweet
if nothing else,
at any given time.
Yeah, he is truly the world's most entertaining president, for better or worse, and it does keep things interesting. That's for darn sure. And if we see, if they maybe say 50 basis points or something, things could get really fun really quick. But we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Avi, our time is running a little short here today. But before we let you go, one more time for our audience who's looking to learn more about you, to look more about 21 Rates, about your podcast, please, one more time, give us the best place we could send them so they can check it out.
Yeah, check us out, 21rates.com. Again, send us an email. My personal is just avi@21rates.com, AVI. And then, our podcast, our Twitter is @21rateshq. So give us a follow, shoot us a DM. We're always happy to talk with fans, answer questions, and excited. I love what you guys are doing at the Blockchain Report. This was fun.
Oh, well, we appreciate it. And you were super fun to have on, too. We hope to have you on again sometime. If you ever have anything you want to announce, please come on board. We'd love to help you out with that. And, really enjoyed the conversation today. And I hope you have a great weekend, my friend. It is Friday.
I know.
So.
It is. I'm going to take a nap soon. I had my daughter keep me up late last night. So I'm a little tired today, but I appreciate it.
Well, you've earned it, Dad, so go take your nap, and appreciate you coming on the show today, Avi, and we hope to see you again real soon, bud. Enjoy your weekend.
All right, you too. Bye.
Cheers. All right, we're taking a quick break. When we're back, we're going to wrap up this week's show with a little bullish, bearish, or BS, so stay tuned. That's coming up right after this.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
All All right, it's time to wrap up the week with a little bullish, bearish, or BS. This is the part of the show where we recap today's top stories and let you know how things are faring for our beloved orange coin. Let's recap. First up, the U.S. debt has ballooned to $37 trillion, and conspiracy theories say the plan is to shove it into stable coins, devalue it, and call the slate clean. Even Trump's team is openly talking about stablecoins and gold revaluation as tools to reset the system. Ooh, I'm calling bullish on this. Why? Well, when Washington floats paying off debt with crypto mechanics, it makes Bitcoin's role as a hard, unprintable asset that much clearer. It shows global confidence in the dollar is a little shaky right now, which historically is rocket fuel for Bitcoin's long-term price. So if the US is considering crypto band-aids, Bitcoin's looking like the cure, baby. I'm bullish. Next up, we got Robinhood unveiled Robinhood Social, an in-app feed where your trades become content, your bad returns are public, and finfluencers get a new megaphone. Think Reddit plus Venmo, but with receipts strapped to every post. Ooh, I actually like this idea. I think this was a smart play for Robinhood, but I'm calling BS in terms of its effect on Bitcoin. This is more about gamified humiliation than serious Bitcoin adoption. It might pump some meme coins, but it won't materially affect Bitcoin demand or its price trajectory, at least anytime soon. So it's noise for retail traders, not signal for Bitcoin. So I am calling BS on that one. And our last recap, El Salvador threw a birthday party for Bitcoin Day, bragging about reserves, laws, and education programs. But under IMF pressure, they repealed their legal tender law and haven't brought new Bitcoin in nearly a year. Ooh, gotta call bearish on this one, right? I mean, symbolically, El Salvador remains a milestone, but scaling back adoption under IMF oversight undercuts the nation-state domino effect. That dampens near-term excitement, even if their holdings remain strong and intact. So, great party, bad optics. IMF leash keeps this bearish short-term, so I'm bearish on that one. So, today's final scoreboard looks a little something like this. We got one bullish, one bearish, one BS, which means today's diagnosis is just a lot of bull. I mean, it's a mix of a perfect storm of contradictions, right? On one side, America is $37 trillion in debt and is basically screaming, Bitcoin fixes this. But on the other side, El Salvador just showed the IMF can yank the leash on Bitcoin nation states. Stuck in the middle, Robinhood's turning your bad trades into social content that nobody asked for yet. So the net effect of this is the Bitcoin narrative remains bullish long term, but in the short term, the noise, politics, and IMF pressure make today feel like a big steaming pile of BS. Yeah, there it is. Get it out of here. Well, gang, that is a wrap of another week of the Blockchain Report. I think we're at like 150 shows or something right now. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in each and every morning. Again, on Mondays, we are here at 10 a.m., ending at 12 p.m. Pacific time on Mondays only. The rest of the week, Tuesday through Friday, you can find us same time, different time, same place, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific time, of course, on RoxomTV. So thanks for tuning in. And if you haven't already, it's Friday. Do me a solid. I'm tired. I've been up since 4. Our whole team gets up at 4 every morning just to put this on for you. So do us a tiny favor and just smash that like button and subscribe and follow RoxomTV and yours truly at Hank at RoxomTV on all platforms that you choose to waste your time on. I know I'm on a couple of them. And until then, we will see you all next week for more crypto chaos and blockchain bedlam right here on the Blockchain Report. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all on Monday.
Thank you.